I want to kind of move into the part 5 already. We sort of talk about this at the beginning, at the introduction. I don't know how many of you kind of remember, because every time God starts a new move, everyone says new move. So whether it's the charismatic, whether it's the prophetic, whether it's the apostolic, whether it's a marketplace, we have a tendency to go one extreme. So I think when we go into the marketplace, the saints movement, we kind of have this thinking. I'm not sure if it applies to you, whether you have the same thinking, that everyone should be marketplace. We kind of, but it's true, none of us are full-time here. That's why it's very easy to have this kind of mindset. And so that's the reason we are doing this comparison, study, and teaching, because at the end of the day, there is that specific portion for you. You have a sphere that you need to look for. So we're kind of coming to an end already. This is part 5. And in fact, 5, 6, 7 are kind of related, because I want to talk about sphere today. Then I want to talk about tension the next time. And part 7, really, I want to talk about occupation, because at the end of the day, when you look at the ecclesia, we are really kind of lagging behind in terms of occupation, right? Compared to other philosophy, right? You look at certain religion, you look at certain philosophy, they are occupying the world, right? So that's why some of you mentioned Olympic, some of you mentioned the news here, and it is because the ecclesia has not been in the mood of occupation. That's why we're always kind of left behind. Anyway, before we go there, let's just quickly recap part 4. If you missed part 4, and it's in YouTube, we talk about the hybrid equipping. And hybrid equipping, of course, we kind of mentioned Nehemiah. Last year, I think, Feast of Tabernacle, I did a teaching on hybrid. And Nehemiah is very interesting because today I want to talk about, the whole concept of convergence, right? Convergence is really, at the end of the day, what is your strongest gift? At the end of the day, what is your strongest competency? But let me ask you a question. What do you think is Nehemiah's convergence? Is he a marketplace person or is he a house person at the end? Marketplace? Okay, never mind, think about it, okay? But you know how he ended, right? So he was 12 years as a cupbearer, and then he was 12 years as governor of Jerusalem. So as cupbearer, he is very, very much marketplace. As governor of Jerusalem, maybe more hybrid. But towards the end, there are evidence to suggest that maybe he has becoming more house, possibly, because he was even asked to deal with the high priest. Of course, we talk about the 3 types of marketplace, hybrid. The most common, we have house, equipping, marketplace. Then we have marketplace people having influence there, and they come back. We call that the reverse model. Then, of course, we talk about whether the equipping itself can be done in marketplace, because we have micro-church. Now, a lot of you have micro-church. You know micro-church is not really suited for equipping because you don't have the time. See, one of the biggest issue always with marketplace people is you don't have time, right? You don't have time. So you can have time to process. You need to come up with a solution like yesterday. So to talk about training people, 9 weeks program, 3 months program, is just a bit crazy, very difficult. So that's why, can it happen? I feel like there is a hybrid model that's going to happen, because certain places, the equipping will have to come from the marketplace. We saw that with School of Tyrannus in Acts 19. So there is a space. We show some evidence. And then finally, we look at Elisha dynamic, look at their sphere, look at their equipping, look at their miracles. I always find when you compare their miracles, it's very interesting because they are so similar yet different. And Elisha just kind of, I was just talking to Lancia about Elisha, right? So Elisha is like, it's like, don't bother me, that kind of person, and when he needs to, that's why sometimes, you have chat group and things like that for certain function, right? You only need to talk when there is something to talk. That's the kind of useful group you want to be in, right? You don't want the group to be where they talk about nonsense all day round. So it's Elisha come across as that kind of person. He will be activated when he needs to be activated. Otherwise, you won't see him. So that's really the marketplace edge that we are talking about. So anyway, I want to talk about spheres, not the actual teaching on sphere, because we have done that so many times already. I think outside of marketplace, outside of the new move, probably sphere is one of the teaching I have been doing the most, but I'm not doing that kind of teaching today, okay? But here's the thing, some general understanding, we all have assignments, right? So whatever we are called to do on earth, it is deeply linked with our spheres. And so we look at personal level. Ever since we're born, we grow up, we develop our interests, our competency. We must find out what is the major assignment. So comes from prophecy, comes from what people say about you, comes from your fruits, and then you pursue towards fulfillment, right? So this is really, now here's the thing. It's like some people can be very goal-oriented, and that's actually a good thing, but if you are too goal-oriented, then you are always looking for the fulfillment. But it's actually a process, okay? So personal level is like that. But there's also corporate level, because look around. Sometimes we don't have a lot of people here and things like that, but there is a corporateness. There are some people that you're supposed to be with. We have to find the right covenant partners, covenant collaborators. I'm not talking about courtship or marriage, okay? I'm talking about covenant people that is going to cause kingdom to manifest. So that's why God put certain people in your life, right? On your left, on your right, and you have to work together so that the corporate aspect is being fulfilled. So understanding of sphere, I would say, is one of the most important aspects. We are in this apostolic prophetic. And we're just talking about how sometimes you can see a lot of ministers, they're very prophetic, right? They're even apostolic. But I think what's missing is really that dominion mindset. That Genesis 1:28, Matthew 28, make disciples of all nations. Because when you think about it, it's really very challenging, right? But Islam have done it, Marxists have done it, a lot of other forces have done that. So if we want to do this well, then we have to understand what kind of authority we have, what kind of limit, what kind of power, what kind of assignment. I think in general, the ecclesia, we underestimated our authority. We kind of downplay it, and we kind of say, oh, it's just limited to here. It's just limited to family mountain. Let's not touch arts and entertainment. Let's not touch media. Media is one of the most challenging mountain, or government. Don't even talk about government and things like that. So that's why, remember, this is the month, Tammuz, right? Tammuz, one of the things about Tammuz is we have to watch our handshake, right? Our alignment, who we interact with. And you see, the thing about sphere is like this. If we do not have a good understanding, that means we don't know our boundary, we don't know our limit, we don't know our potential. Actually, it's both positive and negative. If you don't know about your potential, then you will always be under power. You know how some people, if you play sports, you will know. And the coaches will look at the person and say, this person should be doing so much better. You say like a tennis player, you see a tall player, a strong player, the service should be always, you should have at least 10 aces or whatever in a match. But the thing is, if we don't understand the potential, then you are limiting. Or if we overestimate ourselves, then you always do things that you screw up, right? So if we don't have this understanding, we go into striving mode. That means we're always trying very hard and we can't find our space. So this is why you see Aaron and Miriam, they manifest this, right? One of the months. In fact, right after they left Sinai a few months later, this is what they told Moses, right? Are we also not prophets? Couldn't we hear from God? It's like they are prophetic, but they are not Moses. You see, that's the difference. And that's why it took God to come to explain. Hopefully, God doesn't need to come to explain to you, because once He's doing that, it's no joke, no fun, okay? So that's why this month, of course, we also talk about golden calf, right? See, golden calf, of course, one of the things, and Aaron did give the right excuse. Now, besides the excuse that the calf just came out, okay? But the other excuse, he said, the people out of control, which is true. They are very carnal, they are very emotional, they go out of control, but there is also an issue of alignment. And you see a lack of alignment between Moses and Aaron, but it's not the two brothers, because Aaron is a priest. Priests represent the people. So when the priest is like, so that's why if you are more evangelist, you are more priest type, you are more pastoral type, this is the danger, that you can be swayed by the people. Because you are always talking about, hey, but these people are suffering, And some of you, you're going through that process. You always say, oh, but my friend cannot accept the new move of God or whatever. Some of you have this experience, right? So this is really the problem with the priest. And Aaron had this problem. And this kind of, the whole thing will climax, because that is the second year. First year it happened. Second year, once they left Sinai, towards the end at Kadesh Barnea, the spies will come out with bad report, and you know what happened at the end. So that's why a lot of things happen. It's not just one event. It's many, many things leading to the climax. All right, so let's quickly talk about spheres. Then I want to talk about 3 things that will help us to define our marketplace house dynamic sphere. So the first thing, of course, Acts 17:26, don't need to read this verse. You should know it by heart already, right? The Mars Hill sermon. And, Paul talked about God is the one that determines our times, seasons, calendar, okay, the months. But also, here's a very interesting word he used, boundaries of habitations. We can call that spheres. So boundaries, in general, we talk about geographical limit, right? So some of you are not always in KL. You're traveling and things like that. I mean, we are in a world where we can travel easier, flights are getting easier, but still, you want to ask yourself, what is your geographical limit? It could be one nation, it could be many nations, it could be continent, it could be international. It's okay. You have to find your limit. And that's why when Apostle Paul wanted to go to Asia, the Spirit of God stopped him and say, go to Macedonia. And he was so pleased, right? Because the Macedonian was so rich, right? Right? Lydia, Luke. That's why some people say, maybe the Macedonian was Luke. Maybe. Boundaries, the concept of war. And war is so important. And that's why Nehemiah, self-governing, self-determination, that's the buzzword right now, right? Everyone wants to talk about self-determination. And this is very interesting because the freedom that the world has seen since World War II have been squandered. And that's why people don't understand what is the meaning of self-determination. When you want to go into self-determination, you need to have accountability. You need to be responsible for your decision-making. Habitation. Now, this is a very interesting word used by Luke, because this is a word sometimes used to describe the dwelling presence. God inhabitate, God comes to a place. So when you talk about sphere, when you talk about you're in the right sphere, God will be there. That is the ultimate litmus test, right? If God is not there, then you are not in the right sphere. So it's very, very important, and especially into marketplace. And just because you go into a secular place, just because you deal with unbelievers, doesn't mean God is not there. And just because you are in a church, you're in the mega church celebrating, doesn't mean God is there. So very important, the word habitation. Then, of course, the other thing about habitation is the ideal place. What do we mean by ideal? It means there is maximum grace. You know what is maximum grace? Maximum grace meaning there is a great threshold for you. That means there is greater tolerance. So sometimes you buy things, right? And especially now, if you're into technical things, I use an example that I'm very familiar, like coffee, for example. By the way, do you know that when you make coffee, the most important thing is not the coffee machine, it's a grinder. Yeah, just one lesson for you. And the grinder, and sometimes, then you say, China-made grinder is only 1/4 of the price, can do the same thing as an Italian grinder. No such thing. Because there is always the issue of tolerance. What is the margin? Yeah, I mean, if you make 5 cups, you get 2 times, you get good cup. That's your tolerance. That's your 40% tolerance. So you see, there are differences, but when you are in your ideal place, God allows maximum grace. That means you are allowed a greater margin. I mean, we talk about the competition, we talk about very competitive marketplace. It's all about margin, right? If you have that 5% margin, if you have that 2% margin, your client may choose you over your competitor or vice versa because of that margin. That's why you want to be in the right habitation. Otherwise, you don't have maximum grace. You don't have maximum authority. So that's why the whole thing about sphere at the end of the day is the discerning. Everyone say discerning. And that's the thing, right? Every time we talk about discerning, we're like, okay, discerning. It's up to you. Right? When people come and say, should I do this? Should I do that? You listen. Then what do you say? Very, very often you can't say anything, right? Because it's really up to the person to discern. But I think it's helpful to listen. It's helpful to sometimes, if God really gives you a clear impression, I'm talking about prophetic people, I'm talking about alignment relationship. But very often God will say nothing because He wants the person to have discernment himself or herself. Okay, so keys to having balance. So 3 things I want to talk about today that will really help us in terms of hybrid spheres, okay? So first, of course, we're going to talk about alignment because Tammuz is a month about alignment. I want to talk about convergence. Now, of course, convergence, we have done some teaching before. I'm going to give you one-line summary on convergence. Basically, it's like the process where you reach your optimum gifting and expression. Then finally, I want to talk a little bit about how convergence, if you really step into convergence, you will be able to discern your marketplace house ratio. And one of the things, that's why I say right at the beginning, when we move into this new move, there is always, actually every new move is the same. As prophetic, I give you an example, prophetic. When we move into the prophetic move and we do things like hearing the voice of God, right? The early teaching is everyone who is activated has a gift of prophecy. But that's not true, right? Because those with gift of prophecy really can prophesy one. They really enjoy prophesying. In fact, if you are prophesying now, they want to grab the mic from me or things like that. But those without will be like, it's okay. If you force me to prophesy, I'll do it. That's not the gift of prophecy, okay? That's really, you have the function and occasionally you can be used. So some of you are like that. It's okay. It's okay. You don't have the gift of prophecy. It's fine. Okay, let's talk about alignment. Because this month, Tammuz, prophetically, again, I want to repeat, Tammuz, Av, and Elul, these are 3 prophetic months to deal with deliverance and healing issue. If we don't deal with that, at the new year, it's going to be very tough. Okay? So that's why this month, we have to watch who we handshake with, who are our alignment. You see, here's the thing. The highest level of alignment is covenant, right? But not everyone you have relationship is going to be in covenant with you, correct? Of course, it's like there's no such thing. There will be like ideal, there will be heaven already, okay? But that's why you have various levels of engagement that can help you or hinder you. That's why don't be so religious. Don't think like you cannot work in a company that's mostly unbeliever. In fact, when you look at Seven Mountain, it's mostly not occupied by ecclesia. Everywhere you go, you're going to have some level of spiritual warfare and resistance. That's how much only. See, here's the thing. We are free to fellowship with everyone. Right? Can you go and makan with anyone? Yes. Mostly, right? I mean, it's like, we want to have a business meeting and things like that. If someone you don't even know asks you for lunch, I mean, of course, you are like, okay, should I waste my time and things like that? But assuming you already passed that test, you have the time, you think it's a good prospect, you are free to fellowship, right? You are free to fellowship, right? And that's the thing. We have to be mindful that every interaction with new people is a potential kingdom transaction. So that's why evangelists will always want to meet anyone and everyone. Oh, can. The whole calendar is full. No, in fact, evangelists don't even have calendar one. So because just any time can meet. See, I'm a very calendar person. If you look at my calendar, I have a lot of appointment or slot that no appointment. Like tomorrow, the whole day, I'm going to do some e-invoice study. I told myself, do not disturb me unless it's a matter of life and death. So, that means it's very, very urgent, then you can talk to me. Otherwise, sometimes it's like that because you need to block out certain things you want to do. So, but we need discernment because sometimes if you're not discerning, you can be cheated, right? Your time can be wasted, can be squandered. However, here's the thing. It is not possible to have covenant and to war together with just anyone. See, this is the teaching we always have been saying. It's okay. You want to have relationship, you want to look at potential. See, the keyword is potential. Potential is okay. But then when you want to go into a more serious kind of relationship, then you have to assess whether this is a person that truly I can consider alignment or not. So that's why I say the coming 3 months, we will even see more intense cycle of dividing. And it's very interesting because just a few days, now it's still happening, I think just ending. Turning Point has an event, Turning Point, of course some of you know Charlie Kirk, very, very MAGA kind of person. But Turning Point, this weekend, their event is a Christian event. And one of the pastors who came, Jettison Franklin, I don't know how many of you know him, he is a huge mega church pastor. And mega church pastor so far have been kind of in the middle, they don't want to offend people and things like that. So he went there. He said, if you went there, you are a MAGA person. And he said he spoke to Trump, and finally he realized that you can't be undecided. And he said the moment he chose to come to Turning Point, he said, there's great spiritual warfare at his church. Because a lot of people get triggered and say, Mr. Franklin, how can you do that? You see, the political correct spirit that is capturing the ecclesia. So I really feel the next 3 months, even Apostle Chuck was saying the same thing, right? It's going to be the most intense dividing. So don't be surprised That's why, some of you watched I didn't even watch the Olympic, but I saw a lot of reaction. And one of my old pastor, he kind of just said, oh, I watched this thing, I can't finish it, I have to off it. And then some of the comment is, oh, what happened to you, pastor? You have become intolerant. You see, this is a political correct spirit that is happening right now. So you see, what do you do if people say that to you? Oh, you're very intolerant. I think that's an open door for engagement. And of course, how you want to do it is up to you. I want to suggest to you, don't need to bring your nuclear weapon first. Just kind of, you say, what's wrong with that? Sometimes I find that if you ask, when someone make a statement, you ask a question, most of the time they cannot answer because they don't have the understanding. They are just parroting what they have seen from mainstream media. So you ask them to think, and suddenly, quiet, no response, silent, and they will shut them out for now. But depends, if you feel like it, you may drop a few bombs every now and then. So let's talk about alignments. You see, the thing about proper alignment is, if we have proper alignment, proper covenant relationship. Now, by the way, alignment is not like very, very exclusive, one person, two. You can have alignment with a few people, with the whole tribe and things like that. So when you have proper alignment, eventually it will validate our God-given boundaries and habitations. That means whatever we are not so clear because of alignment, it will manifest. See, apostolic alignment, we've been teaching this for a lot in the last 10, 15 years. It's especially vital in this season. Why is it more important in this season than last season? It's because the assignment seems to shift towards the need to exercise dominion. Actually, it's not so strange also, right? Jesus said, you should pray to God, so let earth be like heaven. That's dominion prayer. The first thing he told Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply. The last thing before he went, make disciples of all nations. What's so controversial about all this? It's not. But it's the political correct spirit. It's years of tradition and hardening of wineskin. So that's why this is very important, because we are seeing that God is preparing. God is pushing. Even people who are not very ready, God is pushing. So you never know. Sometimes you just have to push people into a door and they can perform. Sometimes they can perform. So apostolic alignment, I said already, it's not very exclusive one, but it's what we call the entire apostolic truth, the entire system. More important, I think, is the culture. The apostolic culture is very important. How do you get culture? You need to be with apostolic people. You will be with the pastoral only. Now, every time I say pastoral, I'm not against the pastoral gift, okay? Pastoral is one of the 5. I'm talking about pastoral only. Everyone say pastoral only. So we don't have pastoral only here. So thank God for that. So our pastoral, our evangelism, our teaching, everything is apostolic. Relationship, your gifting, your anointing. Now, by the way, since we talk about gifting, giving, let me just quickly, because we don't really talk so much about giving now, because we kind of understand that you understand, hopefully. But I just want to say, when you give, there's different kind of giving, right? There's tithes, there's sowing, there's giving, there's first fruit. You need to say what you are giving. Some people just put a lump sum and put there, tithe, offering, giving, first fruit. Seriously, we don't know how to record. If like this, it will go into tithes and offering. So you need to specify, because each giving has its own reward. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Okay. Yeah. And we know we encourage banking. Nobody is tracking your giving. I don't even remember what's happening. Okay, I just put in the Excel and that's it. So I know some people will be like, oh, I don't want to be tracked. No, nobody is tracking your giving, okay? So, but we don't want just so much cash here, it's like, have to go in bank, and some of the notes they don't accept, etc., etc. But you know the drift. But it's up to you. There's freedom. Look at your neighbor and say, there is freedom. So we look at some example alignment. We have been talking about Elijah and Elisha, right? So Elisha, interestingly, left marketplace, right? And actually, we were just talking this morning. We say Elisha followed Elijah still make a bit of sense, because here's Elijah, a prophet who has been in ministry for 20 years, right? But the fisherman following Jesus is a bit illogical, right? Who is this Jesus, right? But at least with Bartholomew, he used the seer gift and said, I saw you at the fig tree. They're all, okay, you have the gift of sight. Fine. But the fisherman is like, what's happening? But anyway, maybe some, yeah. But you know, like when you read the whole gospel, actually, they recognize his legitimacy. But here's Elisha. He left marketplace and he chose to be, here's a very interesting thing, sharpened by house foundation. Because he was with Elijah's school of prophet for 20 years, right? And then all because of his alignment with Elijah. Then we look at Joshua, right? Joshua and Caleb, who did nothing wrong, if anyone should not be punished, it would be those two, right? So, but they had to be in wilderness for 40 years, actually 38 years. And it's because of his alignment with Moses. Remember when Moses was at Mount Sinai, Joshua was always at the half mountain there, interceding. But then, at the end of the wilderness, Joshua's apostolic leadership flourished. And in fact, you could even say his apostolic character have exceeded Moses by the end of wilderness. So very, very interesting that the next generation should always exceed the current generation. That's always our principle. That people that we train should do greater things than us. If we don't have this kind of mindset, why are we equipping people, right? All right, the second thing I want to talk about is convergence. And we kind of talked about convergence previously, but I give you a one-line summary, okay? Now, if convergence, later, there's a book written by this Fuller Seminary professor. He's called Robert Clinton. He wrote a full book on convergence, but the late Apostle Peter Wagner, in his last book, The Fruitful Life, right, he also has one chapter. It's very, very short. You can read that. It's very easy to read. But a one-line summary of convergence. Spending most of your time doing what you are good at and doing what you are supposed to do. That means you are focused. You reach the peak. You know, we talk about peak performance, right? It's like this is your ideal form. So convergence, and very similar to reformation, is it every time we do this kind of teaching, you find that people will be like, okay, I want convergence, but we don't understand that there is a process, there are other things you need to do. It's a reformation, right? You want to reform a land, so many things you need to do first. And people don't want to do that. They want a shortcut, they want to jump. That's why it's not something you can do, you can pursue just in isolation, just by itself. So Robert Clinton, in his book, you can find this, I think, in Amazon, you can get it. Quite an interesting read, because this book, he uses, I think he studied 500 leaders, church leaders. And one of the model that he has was Peter Wagner, because he saw that Peter went through many cycles. He changed his mind so many times, remember? And finally, he reached his convergence. So Robert Clinton used Peter as one of his examples, because they were colleagues at Fuller, okay? So he said, look, before you reach convergence, there are actually 4 other steps. The first one is sovereign foundation. What is sovereign foundation? God chose you. God chose you, right? I mean, if God didn't choose us, we're not here, right? But you see, God chose you is very good, but it's not enough. Because the second thing is inner life growth. You chose God. You choose God. And I think this is where a lot of people get stuck. It's like God can select us, but if we don't want it, we are stuck here. So I find a lot of people stop here because they are not willing to pay the price for inner life growth. They are not willing to have spiritual and natural growth. But assuming you do that, it is still not enough. What you need to do is you need to have ministry maturing. You need to produce ministry fruits. So according to Robert Clinton, it should start in the house. Because I think most of us, the training starts in the house, right? But at some point, if you begin to produce ministry fruits, you will have life maturing. You produce fruits of life. This is talking about outside the house already. So when you have all these things, finally you reach convergence. You narrow down your spheres. You spend most of your time doing what you're good at, and you are actually very good. So that's why, you see, so many people, I think, are stuck at inner life growth, right? Because they are not willing to choose God. They are not willing. And we saw that with a lot of examples, right? Even Jesus met the young rich ruler, remember? Wanted him to do certain things, but he was not willing to choose God. See, prophetic picture of convergence, and this is the kind of thing, if you're the kind of prophetic person, you want prophetic language, we can think of it as narrowing. It's like a tight corridor, laser focus, and narrowing of desires. I find this very, very interesting, because when you converge, you start to say certain things, you don't like it so much already, because you are making priority, right? I mean, we all have the same amount of time. This is the most fair aspect of humanity. We all have the same amount of time. But then, you see, someone will have a lot of desire, right? That's why I say, list down your desire. List down your non-negotiable or whatever. It's very long. It's okay. It's not right or wrong, but that's why Apostle Paul say, I think I don't want to get involved with this marriage thing. Let other people procreate. Because he say, I'm laser focused. I think he's the most focused apostle, all right? It's like he cannot be persuaded. He wanted to go to Asia so much until God had to send a dream. Another concept to help us understand convergence is distillation. Okay, this is a bit of chemistry, okay? And you know what is distillation? It's a concept that, it's a multi-process kind of thing. You get a final desired result. So certain, like water, okay, now distilled water these days kind of gone out of fashion because they say not enough. Too clean is not good. Distillation was created during the space program because they're thinking how to recycle urine. So they come up with this process, and so the astronaut will distill their urine and drink it. But it's clean water, okay? So then of course but in fact it's not a new process like gin tonic. We sell gin tonic down there, and gin is really a distilled product. You look at it, it looks like water, right? But you smell it, you taste it, so strong. So that's why you have to go through many steps to get the final desired result. So convergence, you can kind of look at it like a distillation of what? Your gifts, your passions. That's why sometimes you say you have passion, you have desire. You have to ask God, is it really your design for me? Because sometimes the passion could be upbringing. The passion could be peer influence. The passion could be societal influence. It could be education. It could be friends and things like that. So you want to look at all these things, your strength, and then you kind of package it. You kind of filter it into your top 2 or 3. That's why when a person reaches convergence, they will be just focusing on 2 or 3 or 4 things. That's it. They are very, very focused. But here's the thing about convergence. You can't, it requires life experience. Now, Robert Clinton, he felt like an average age of convergence is around 50, but it's not a fixed rule, okay? But imagine this, I don't think you want to have convergence at age of 30, right? I don't think you even want it at the age of 40. So it's like, why? Because you need all the high, all the low, all the success, all the failure. So Peter Wagner kind of moved into the apostolic around age 50. So he felt like that's his convergence. The beginning of his convergence, which God continued to kind of package it until almost 60 years old. The other thing about convergence is this is a thing that will help. It requires the development of a critical mindset. Now, very important for us to understand that a critical mindset is different from self-critical mindset. Self-critical is always negative one. Self-critical, in fact, it is what we call a tendency to have self-judgment. So some of you know that my family, myself also, we have a lot of thyroid issue. So when I was doing a bit of research, John Eckhart said that self-judgment actually is the root of thyroid autoimmune issue. So if people have autoimmune related disease, that means there is potentially self-judgment in your bloodline. So that's why it's very, very important. The balance. You want to be critical, but not to the point you judge yourself. The line is thin. So critical mindset, what do we mean by that? That means you have a good natural and spiritual awareness. Sometimes, especially now, some of you are going to university soon and things like that. I tell you, this is going to be, self-awareness is going to be so important. When I was in Australia, my entire stay there, we're doing a lot of ministry, helping students. And sometimes you can just see that when a person is not well-trained, not well-exposed, they don't have a self-awareness. And unfortunately, those days I kept saying, a lot from Cebu have this kind of issue. Yeah, oh no, it's very bad. In fact, one of the worst one was after a while, we have a ministry house. We are so welcoming, we don't even lock our house door. People can come in, people can use our washing machine, people can cook in our house, people can even eat our food. And this one person caused us to lock the house. So that shows you how bad it is. But you see, you want people to be very, very aware, not like overly aware, not like always wanting to please people. That's man-pleasing spirit. That's why I say it's a thin line. If you have a critical mindset, you are very conscious, you're mindful, you want to bless other people, but if too much, you put a lot of pressure on you to perform. So that's why it's a balance. How do you reach that? But it's very easy to see one. Mature people can tell that this person is very well trained, well taught, very pleasant, and well behaved. So it's the things that you want to. So you want this. In fact, if you want to improve in this area, you have to give permission to people to comment on your behavior. If you want to do that, talk to some of us will be, okay, maybe not me, but some people like to do that. Some people can tiao, fix you, and don't get offended. I'm not very good at it. In fact, I won't be good in this. That's why my staff say I never scold people. So it's good and bad. It's good and bad. It's just different kind of thing. Anyway, moving on. Critical mindset. You see, we try our level best to be objective. You see, when it comes to prophetic, we always want to be objective, right? That means what do you mean by objective? We are trying to separate our emotion, separate our soul. But here's the thing I want to talk about. God, it's not possible to be objective all the time. God sometimes will just come and overrule. And he will just say, so what? If God come and tell you, so what? You know what do you say? You should just keep quiet. Because that's a subjective intervention of God. When it comes, you just have to submit to that. But most of the time when we talk about the spiritual gift, we want to be objective in the sense we don't want our carnal, soulish desire to step in. And we always talk about that in prophecy, right? You don't want to prophesy out of your desire, your anger. Sometimes you see some prophetic words, it's quite angry one. And even a very seasoned prophet can be very angry. That's why recently I saw a Morning Star prophet, Chris Street. Chris Street is 40 years old only. 40, quite young. And I would say he's one of the most objective prophet in terms of soul and emotion. So it's a good model, but I'm saying that it's not a hard and fixed rule, just something we try to aim for. So I already mentioned about these 3 months, prophetic portal, that will help us with our emotion instability. Because all of us, we kind of, everyone can get emotional. Don't tell me you are not emotional. Okay, maybe less emotional, but still we want these 3 months to fully heal us so that when the new year comes, we have a new prophetic message that will really help us to go into occupation. Because really, you think about it, 5785, I think it's going to be a crazy wild year. Really, really, nothing like before. It's almost like the first 5 years of pay is to prepare us. Then the last 5 years is like a roller coaster kind of thing. So we want to be as emotionally stable as possible. So here's the thing about, finally, Robert Clinton, his research concluded, he said most leaders never reach convergence because of one of the 4 issues, right? It's like either they don't want God, or they are not producing ministry gifts, fruits, they are not producing live fruits. So many factors that cause them. This is Peter Wagner's own comment. He said the lack of this understanding, lack of the understanding of convergence is retarding, is hindering our assignment to get to positions of influence in Seven Mountains. Because it's like, if you don't think you could be the best of the best in a certain area, then you'll be like, okay, those places are too far away. You look at arts and entertainment. You see, the other day we just have our quarterly board meeting, our group. Then you say, we saw another service accounting group. The revenue is 3 billion 1 year. They were like, so far away. We are so far away. But my boss is like, no. It's like in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, we can reach certain milestone to match them. Then everyone is like, sweat. But that's the thing. Then he will be like, what's your budget now? 30 million, 60 million next year. Sweat. So that's the thing. It's like, but if you think about it, if you push convergence and you place people at the right place, you cannot, someone who is very quiet and more introspective, you cannot ask them to be sales, right? It's the end of your company. So you have to find the right gifting, let them try, let them fail, and then repositioning. See, one of the things in the body of Christ, I find people are offended by repositioning. Why are you offended? We are just being adjusted so that you can reach your convergence. If you are not a public person, why do you want a public gift? If you are a back-end person, your back-end gift, by the way, you also receive the same reward in heaven. See, this is the thing. And if you really still have this kind of mindset, I encourage you, talk to some people, pray, review your prophetic words so that you will be fixed on going to the place where you can really do well. Okay, last one. It is really, now of course I already mentioned convergence takes time, right? But once you're becoming closer to closer, or even if you reach convergence, it will really help you to see your marketplace and house ratio. Now, we always ask this question during commissioning, and I realized something. I realized we are asking a question which a lot of people cannot answer. Because we always ask, what's your ratio? So, what's the easy answer? 50-50. So a lot of people can help me 50-50. Then I know it's fake one. No, it's not fake because we never think about it, how to process. So I've been thinking about this a lot, but I really believe that you need to have convergence before you are able to say for sure whether you are more marketplace or more house. Yeah. So we need to remember, right, convergence, of course, it can be a destination. We reach the ultimate level of destiny, expression, competency, but it takes time, right? So average age 50, some can achieve younger, some achieve older. So if we have to wait for everyone to reach the destination, it's too long. It's not practical. So the other way to look at convergence is you can also look at it as the actual process of narrowing. And that's why you see companies today, they have what they call continuous performance monitoring. It's like why we have quarter meeting is because you can compare with last year's same quarter 2 now, last year. You can compare with last quarter. If there is a variant, then you can talk what's wrong and how we can fix that. So that's why I think the way for us in a practical sense is we look at the actual process. We look at the actual improvement. And then it will help you to say, hey, actually, I'm improving. I'm becoming more and more focused. I'm becoming the kind of end product distilled into the desired end product. I'm closer to that. That's why the understanding of yourself, the understanding of your destiny, the understanding of your prophetic words, it has to happen. Otherwise, this will be very, very challenging for a lot of us. Okay, here's the main line I actually want to say today. Just because you are a full-time marketplace person does not mean your convergence expression is actually marketplace. In fact, the whole series started off with this thinking in my mind. Because I'm like, is everyone supposed to be a marketplace? I know we need to send a lot of people. We don't even have enough people. We send everyone into the 7 mountains, still not enough. But nevertheless, you know that some people are not really their convergence. I'm talking about their ultimate gift expression. See, a lot of us are marketplace, but is that your fight? That's why I asked you about Nehemiah. At the end, is he 100% a marketplace person? I don't think so. I think you can argue hybrid. You can argue maybe even a bit more house. Because he was so involved with Ezra and things like that towards the end. Something to think about. It's not a right or wrong thing. See, that's why I already mentioned when we move into the Saints movement, this was one of the wrong assumptions. We thought that everyone, their convergence should be marketplace. That's not the case. And then, of course, it caused negative gift projection. We say, marketplace is superior. Hey, I don't know what's the second line for. Delete that. I also don't understand. It's like sometimes you write something, you don't understand your handwriting. And we saw that, right, with every move, right? Healing gift. Sometimes you go to a church, if the main pastor is a healer, then he expects everyone to be healing, right? Healer, right? Every day we do healing. Then if you don't have the gift of healing, you feel very sian, right? So I hope you don't feel like we are projecting marketplace here, things like that. But it is a new move for God. A lot of us are in marketplace, but is that your convergence? That is the question to explore. So let's look at a few examples. Apostle Paul. So his assignment passed. Now this guy is a house guy, right? Would you call him a house guy? He started from house, right? He was trained by who? An elite Hebrew minister, Gamaliel. And he boasts, I'm the Hebrew of the Hebrew. I'm the most Hebrew. In fact, he's saying that I have been trained in the temple, synagogue. None of you compare to me. That's basically what he's saying. So later on, even after he was saved, remember he was mentored by who? Barnabas and Peter, right? For another 6-7 years. And these two also were house people, right? Because by that time, now very interesting that I find Barnabas and Peter actually are marketplace people. But they became house people. They became the house apostles. See, yet both of them were marketplace. So I want to just kind of say that, look, he started off his career more of a house person. But then I want to look at this part, which is very interesting. 1 Corinthians 9, 13 to 15. Now, we always say that, now, this is a passage that will make a lot of us think, okay? Because none of us are full-time, right? But yet, this is what Apostle Paul said. Do you not know that those who perform sacred services eat the food of the temple? Those who attend regularly to the altar, some of you serve. Some of you are in Judah, you attend to the altar, have their share from the altar. So also the Lord directed those who proclaim the gospel to get their living from the gospel. Okay, stop here. So if you share the gospel, you are entitled to eat. Yeah, have you read this verse before? Yeah, right? But then here's the big one. He said, but I have used none of these things. So the question is, why? I mean, he said you can, right? Why didn't he? So any suggestion why? Rich enough. Oh, that's the best. Rich enough. I remember my parents when they went to Cambodia as full-time missionary, and I think my dad set a budget for themselves to be able to live there for 5 years without any help, because he doesn't want to rely on the religion mountain. So it could be one like that. I mean, that sounds like him. So rich enough, possibly. So, but anyway, we'll get there in a while, okay? But the first thing to note from that scripture is that it is proper. Everyone say proper. So if you are Levite, if you serve in an altar, your house ministers, you proclaim the gospel, you can eat from the house. You can eat from ministry. So that's why for those of all of us, we have, a lot of us, we have earning, right? We have financial independence and things like that. Do we want to do this or not? That's a separate issue to consider. But the scripture is clear that you can do it. You can. It's not wrong. Then, of course, the very definition of full-time minister is someone who is financially dependent on the house, right? So you see people who work full-time, they draw a salary from the ministry. Yet Paul said he did not take anything. Why? I think there's a few suggestions. And that's why rich enough, Andrea said rich enough, but I think maybe he wanted to be financially independent. So you see this model very often in mission work. Because every time, you know what happens when you take money? You are accountable. You're kind of like under the system already, right? So actually, by the way, it's the same. If you take welfare money from government, you are under the government. That's why the scriptures say, now I'm not saying welfare is bad. I'm just saying that you have biblical evidence. God say you should be a lender, not a borrower. There is a reason for that. Because every time you take something, you are under that. So I think he wanted to be financially independent. And then in Acts 18, okay, I'm jumping all over the place, but just to help you to understand. In Acts 18, Luke began to describe Paul as a tent maker. This is the first time ever in the whole book of Acts that we finally found out that, actually Paul was working. All this while you thought, hey, what happened? Suddenly, why this tent making come out? Now, of course, it is similar to Aquila and Priscilla, right? And then immediately in the same chapter, he described himself, I'm now fully devoting to the word. So it looks a bit like oxymoron, right? It looks a bit like you know, we say a bit contradictory, right? It's like you're working and then you're fully for ministry. Okay, why do you think someone could be working for money and then still fully in ministry? I think it's the one I just mentioned earlier on. They want to be financially independent. They don't want to kind of beg people for money and things like that. So that's why, in my view, his fear actually is still in the house, even though he was a tent maker. Because when he was working as a tent maker, he's just getting more money, so he doesn't have to rely. Because he go to places, you know his model, he goes there 1 month, 3 months, he will help them. He's like an itinerary founding apostle. Once he start the center, then he left already. Only towards the end, in Ephesus, in Corinth, some of the places he stayed a bit longer. So he doesn't want to burden them possibly with financial. Because it's like, can you imagine, you say, I found the thing, please set aside 50% of all your collection for me. You know, then it's very straining on the house. So I believe his tent-making job was to give him financial independence. That's why later on you see in 1 Corinthians 9, he kept praising the Philippians church. He said, the Macedonian, you know how rich they are or not? He said that a few times, You see, when he said that a few times, because it's like, that's why I say Lydia and Luke, it's a kind of apostolic model we want to see here also. That you have a business, you are so rich, you basically can support even an apostolic center. But you see, to do it without control, that's the tough part. Because, in our culture, every time you give money to people, you want control. We see that with mission work, we see that with charity and things like that. So that's why I'm just suggesting, I'm not saying it might or it could. I'm just saying that maybe for some of us, our marketplace adventure is mostly for providing a financial security and independence. That means it might not be your convergence. But it might be. It might also be. That's why you need life experience to discern and try out. I mean, obviously, if you have a prophetic words and say that you are a wealth creator, you're going to be really out high in arts and entertainment. Obviously, you have those kind of words. Your convergence is supposed to be there, I guess, for some season. But if you are not there, you don't have that kind of passion, you don't have that kind of fruits. You could be like Paul, right? I'm tent making now, but now I'm fully devoted to the word. So we could be a hybrid. We could be a hybrid. That means we have some impact in marketplace, and yet maybe our ratio is more towards the characteristic and character of the house. So that's why the ratio is not so simple one. You have to begin to think about it. Remember, just a quick overview. In part 1, we talk about house. What is the house, right? Of course, obviously, it's equipping for people inside here, equipping for marketplace, prayer. And this is the thing I mentioned, Judah, right? I say Judah is like tuna in the sushi. You can't really... Is there something I don't think you can do it in a marketplace that well? Yes, you can have, I can imagine an arts and entertainment kind of testimony, kind of glory, impact. But in terms of opening the portal of heaven fully, I still feel like Judah at this stage of the evolution. Most likely it's still a house kind of thing. But it might be in the future, I don't know. In a place where entire society is very open to kingdom, maybe it's doable. Maybe. You see, you think about Wesley, when the whole holiness movement transformed England, then when you have open rally, open worship, people do, it's acceptable. But right now, you look at it, it's not acceptable. You try to be a bit Christian, and people will say you are intolerant, you are bigots or whatever. Because we are fighting the atmosphere. You try to do a rally, try to do a healing kind of thing in Paris Olympic right now, you're going to get a lot of pushback because of the environment. Okay, some more. Okay, second example, let's look at Nehemiah. Now, Nehemiah already mentioned he is a reverse marketplace model, which is very interesting. That means he started in marketplace first. He had a huge impact there. In fact, his impact was not small, right? He was a high-ranking official for Persian Empire and cupbearer for 12 years. You know cupbearer? Cupbearer is like senior eunuch. Senior eunuch. You watch all those movies, and sometimes the ministers are there, right? And the emperor will say, okay, do this, report. And then when a lot of ministers are conflicting, or even his prince and his children are fighting, right? Then the emperor will be, okay, stop. Okay, he wants to talk to the eunuch. Give me your personal view. Then the eunuch will be like, Argh. So Nehemiah is that level. Very, very influential, okay? 12 years. Using marketplace terminology, he was top. Would you agree he was top? He was top of the government mountain, right? That's why he said, if you are okay, I need some balak timber, I need some authorization letter, I need some protection, I need your security guard, I need your personal bodyguard. Not the secret service that allowed someone to be shot, those kind of things. And he got all that, right? See, here's the thing about the reverse one. His tremendous Seven Mountain influence allowed him to gather resources to rebuild and reform Jerusalem. Without this influence, nobody will care, right? You see, if today you are someone like you're Bill Gates, you're Elon Musk or someone, and you say, oh, I think United Nations or whatever should set certain budget for certain things. Even if they don't agree or like you, they will still have to consider it because of your position. See, that's the thing. You have to get this kind of influence first before you can gather marketplace resource. That's why we need this kind of model also. We need people who are really, really successful in the marketplace. But then the Lord shifted him into full-time reformer. And could it be that this is his convergence? Because after 12 years in Persia, he went back, he went to Jerusalem and became governor for 12 years. But there is just one line there. He said, I fixed a time with my king. And eventually, he had to go back. Wow, could it be that he told the king, I will be away, I need to take an unpaid leave for 12 years. Today, you go and talk to your boss, I need unpaid leave for 12 years. It's like, are you alien? Are you from another planet? But he was so high performing and so well regarded that the Persian king said, yes. So that's why in the end, I think maybe you can say, he had that kind of hybridness, equal house, equal marketplace, because he was governor. Of course, you still look at a lot of civil issue, you still look at security issue, but then most interesting towards the end of the book in Nehemiah, he kind of kicked out the high priest, right? Pull out the hair also, and things like that. So that's why, here's my theory, okay? I think in his case, when he started off as a cupbearer, probably I would say he's 90% marketplace ratio, because he was there for 12 years, right? But why the 10%? The 10%, because you see in Nehemiah 1, he was able to understand the history, he was able to do identification, repentance, he was able to do intercession. So he has a bit of that, but he was not really like in the house. He just had that kind of understanding. But then towards the end, many years in Jerusalem as governor, and then he partnered with the top house minister, Ezra. I feel like his ratio became 50-50, or maybe even 60-40, I don't know. This one is not important. What's important is this point, that when you converge into your gifting, your ratio can change. So it's like some of you maybe started off in the house, you are doing so well in the house, and then God suddenly put you in the marketplace. And now your ratio in marketplace become more and more and more and more. So who are you? Where you are? This is something to think about, and I really believe that 5785 is a very important year to manifest this actual ratio. Because he had authority to deal with high priests, I would just say, but even then, after 12 years as governor, eventually he had to go back to Persia. And that's the end of the story. We don't know what happened. Could he maybe shift back again and became like the advisor to the Persian king's son already? I don't know. Maybe the next generation, and the king so trusted him and said, I want you to be an advisor. Then what can you do? Because he promised already. See, our times, our seasons, our boundaries, I'm finishing with this already. Habitations can change as we pursue convergence. And our house and marketplace ratio could change. And I was thinking it for myself also, because when we first started, we are really very, very marketplace. We encourage people. But one of the prophetic words I get very, very early on is that someone, a very respected minister, told me this, that there will be a time where you'll be engaging in full-time apostolic work. And of course, we know full-time, going back to the old system and program, is out already. But you could interpret this as more house, more kind of thing. So it's just something that we have to think about, because it's not fixed one. Just because you see, Nehemiah is so successful in marketplace, right? And yet God could say, I want you to be in the house for 12 years. Because your gifting, your expertise is needed. Actually, one of the very important minister for Jokowi, the sports minister, I suddenly cannot remember his name. He was, at one time, he was the owner of Inter Milan, And he was like buying football cards and things like that. And then Jokowi asked him, come back and help me. So he sold Inter Milan to Sunning Group. He came back and he became like Jokowi in close advisory circle. So that's the thing, right? Sometimes you respond to a change, and you used to be a cabinet minister, now you are an advisor. You look at like American political system, they have the advisor, right? They have senior advisor. These people, their position is not very official one, it's not in the constitution and things like that. But they are much more influential than a cabinet minister. They're much more influential than a secretary of state or things like that, because they are the president's inner circle. So, maybe that's what you're going to be, and it looks like you are more house kind of person, but God is using that. All right, so let's just quickly recap again. These are the three things. Tammuz, we talk about alignment. If there's no alignment, if there's no certain covenant relationship, our sphere cannot come out, right? Convergence, I think if you want convergence, you have to love God. If you don't love God, I think it's not a done deal, okay? then you go to where you're supposed to be. And finally, when you begin to express convergence, it doesn't need to be at the end because it will take a long time. I don't think any of us want to wait until 50, 60 years old, right? Too long, right? But as we progress, I think you can begin to see this ratio will change. Don't be afraid of the change. Embrace the change because I really think that the next coming year is going to be a big year, okay? All right, so we are done for now. So I think we just say goodbye to those online because we want to do some sending out. So not going to keep you for long. So we can say bye to the online one. Okay,